You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
It's time for part 3 of the Denouement 1865's review of the last season with Tom, Greg and Reiss. If you haven't listened to the first 2 parts yet, then do go back to your podcast app and give them a whirl. Right now, we go back to the lads as they're getting towards that Europa League semi-final against Aston Villa.
Yeah, as soon as the Villa game come around, the second leg was the first leg, I think 1-0. I think it would have been nice to go to Villa Park with obviously a few more goals, stating the obvious. Then we have that, obviously, the Chelsea game where Gibbs White unfortunately has that collision with Sanchez. And yeah, I just think as soon as it got to that Thursday against Villa and you looked at the side and you knew on the Monday, didn't you, when we saw Gibbs White his facial injuries, you just knew he wasn't going to be fit for the game against Villa, and it's just the case that we just ran out of men, didn't we? I mean, maybe I did say on our pod when we did the match report that there might be a bit of a lack of belief, because we've all played football at certain levels, and when you lose like 3 or 4 of your best players, that belief just saps before you've even set foot on a football pitch. But I just think it was a missed opportunity. But having said that, if our previous manager took it a bit more seriously and didn't need the playoff, was it right that we could have avoided Villa until the final?
Yeah, we'd have gone to the other side of the draw. So
yeah, so it's all ifs, buts and maybes. But yeah, going back that Chelsea game, I thought was fantastic with the players, what he picked with like McAtee. I thought he played well, Backward played well. Then, like I said, the Villa game, we just ran out of legs and men, didn't we, in the end? And I think it's a missed opportunity, to be honest. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, you can say about being on the other side of the draw, etc. I guess the caveat to that is we wouldn't have probably, from a travelling perspective, wouldn't have got the Fenerbahçe nights and the Midtjylland nights away.
But you'd have had other ones, though. You know,
possibly.
You'd trade them in to go to the final. I mean, if we got Villa in the final, one-off game, you know.
Yeah, but, you know, even say if we'd have gone on the other side of the draw and we'd played, I don't know, Real Betis over 2 legs, I know we played well there, but it's not a given we beat them. You know, we'd lost to Braga in the tournament. I mean, as poor as I thought they was, but in an ideal world, yeah, it would have been Villa in the final. But yeah, I mean, we did really well in the first leg, got a 1-0 lead. I think we'd all took that because I remember the side coming out for that first leg and I think people were a bit concerned, and it was very much of, you know, let's stay in the tie here. So to take a 1-0 lead to Villa Park, you're thinking, right, this is a big chance, because, you know, then you see them play Tottenham on the, I think it was on the Sunday, wasn't it?
It was the Sunday. They had the later game, didn't they?
And I know they rotated, 7 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah.
I know they rotated, but you're thinking, God, you know, they've not. I think it was a few games had not won, and you're thinking, well, you never know. And yeah, there's no doubt the injuries caught up on us. I also, you know, controversially think probably the one time I didn't disagree with, one of the only times I didn't agree with Vítor, I thought he picked the wrong side that night. I thought he should have played a 5 at the back and kept us compact. I think, as you saw on Sunday, Jai Kuhn is just not a right back. No. He's a centre half, and he struggles there. I thought it was a bit strange to start McAtee, then bring him off the 8s at half time. I thought that sub should have been the other way round. You know, just try and keep it compact first half of a back 5. You know, you've got your wing back so you can push forward. But it is what it is. And Villa, you know, they did what we did to Sunderland. They smelt blood and they took it, and we had no answer. I mean, we was really poor on the night. I don't think anyone could come off the pitch and say they'd done really well, and it was just disappointing for me, because having got so far, and I always felt had we got past Villa, we would have won it. Yeah. I fully expected them to beat Freiburg. I don't think Freiburg are much cop, and that's why it was so hurtful, because we've become so close. We're 90 minutes away, and I just felt on the night, there's no doubt the injuries harmed us. I just felt went out with a bit of a whimper, really, which was a shame. I mean, if we'd have gone out fighting with that team, say if we'd have lost, I don't know, 2-1 on the night or 2-0 on the night, and we'd have got beat on penalty, something like that, you can hold your hands up as more hurting that would have been. You can say, well, at least we've gone out on a sword and we've had a real go. I just thought we went out with a bit of a whimper on the night, personally, which was a shame. Because there were still good enough players on that pitch.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like we were playing a load of kids. There was still quality players on that pitch, and just some of them, senior pros. I'm like picking out Milenkovic and Wood. They just didn't turn up that night. I mean, when did we see Milenkovic do something like he did, wear a daft shirt pull, and Chris Wood just couldn't get hold of the ball all night? It just, unfortunately, was one of them nights for us on the biggest stage of all, which is a shame.
Yeah. Staying with you, Reiss, so obviously I would have echoed what you just said. I would have gone compact with played the three centre backs and packed the midfield with Blackie, Yates, Anderson, Dominguez. But obviously I had Nico Williams on one side. Who would you have played at the other fullback position? Would you have played a Dylan Backer or someone or Hutchinson?
Well, he just had his best game for us Backer after the Chelsea game. So you'd think to yourself, common sense wise, you think, well, his confidence is pretty high. And I think he's played right wing back a few times for Strasbourg. So defensively, he kind of knows what he's doing, because I do think Hutchinson is very susceptible defending. Doesn't track his runners enough, as you've seen in the Villa home game where we drew 1-1. He let Rodgers run off him. So yeah, but unfortunately, you can't cry over spilt milk. It's done now, and you can't take anything away from Villa, because on the night they smelt blood and they punished us. Yeah.
Coming to you, Greg. I mean, the Newcastle game, which actually secured our Premier League survival for a fifth, going into this Premier League next season for a fifth season. I just felt that the mood was really, really low around the City ground after what happened against Villa. And I mean, we went 1-0 down for a Harvey Barnes goal again, because he seems to love scoring against us following his Leicester connections and everything. And then Elliot Anderson, who, for a young lad, I think he's been absolutely fantastic this season. His character, because we know that his mum had been suffering for a long time through an illness, which she sadly succumbed to. But somebody who's played all the games in that period, apart from the time when he had that period of absence, I think so commendable for a young lad, isn't it? Because he's been living with that, nearly a year, if you look at the timeline and everything, and still perform week in, week out, and obviously getting the England squad. And I think it was a proud moment when he scored against Sunderland, but I think it was an even more proud moment against Newcastle when he scored that goal late on against his boyhood club. And I think he's been absolutely fantastic this season, and sadly it looks like he might be leaving in the summer. And I think he's been fantastic for this 2 years. And you said on the preview pod that you had high expectations of him this season in terms of, and he probably just needed to add a few more goals to his game when you said it in the preview pod. But I think he's been excellent for us. It'll be a sad day when he does leave.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows how important he's been for Nottingham Forest since he first came to the club. He arrived and we weren't really quite sure what kind of player he was, where he played. We thought maybe he was a 10, he could play on the wing. His first season was fantastic, and we were all able to see very, very quickly how good a player he was. But he's just got taken it up another level. When he helps England under-21s win in the summer, his maturity was evident in that tournament and in that team. He was taking responsibility, taking a penalty. He came into this season, and I just felt it was going to be a real special year for him in a football sense, and it has been in terms of him breaking into the England side. Not just breaking in. I said it on our pod. I'm sure Thomas Tuchel would love to adopt him. I think he loves him that much. He loves Anderson that much. He's a nailed-on starter in the England side. He's an important player in the England side. And for us, he's very rarely had anything less than a 7 out of 10. I mean, he puts a shift in. The work that he does is absolutely incredible. And to lose your mum is one of the hardest things you'll ever go through. And I can speak from experience. It absolutely ripped me apart when it happened. And that was 13, 14 years ago. And I was an older man than what Elliot is. And so I know that feeling. And he's just conducted himself so professionally, so perfectly, and held himself to a standard that is quite surprising, to be honest with you. And he hasn't let his performances drop. Yeah, when he scored against Sunderland, it was just so poignant for him to do that against Newcastle's arch rivals, and it just put the cherry on the top, the perfect cherry on the top of a wonderful, wonderful away performance. And I don't get to as many games as you guys, unfortunately, but I was at the Newcastle home game, and it was a bit of a funny game. We were disappointed to have gone out of Europe, but I think Newcastle were kind of half on the beach. Their form hadn't been great. I thought we looked quite lively in places. I didn't think we deserved to go a goal down. And then we just were hoping for something to happen to get us at least a goal, to get us at least a point. And it was Elliot Anderson. And there he was, barraging into the box, forcing it past Nick Pope. And again, it was just such a significant moment for him after losing his mum in the way that it's happened. And when it's quite public as well, it's difficult. Trust me, when it happens in private, it's tough enough. When it happens in public and all eyes are on you and you're feeling everyone's sympathy, it's a difficult thing because everyone's looking at you. And when everyone's looking at you, it's almost, you might be thinking, well, how am I supposed to behave? Obviously, I'm gutted, but he's just kept his head up. He's got on with his football. And he's been an absolute privilege to watch play for our club. He has conducted himself amazingly. If he is to be departing, we've got to make sure that we send him off with love because he's given everything for that shirt, and we should be proud of him. We should be saying to him, go and have the best career you can possibly have. Thank you for what you've done for our club. We wish you, and I hope he stays. If there's a way we can get another year out of him, I'll take it now. But if it is to be that he goes, then he goes with nothing but love and respect. And I'll be looking on in his career, hoping that he does really, really well. And in the World Cup, certainly for England.
Absolutely. And I endorse everything you said there. Is there anything that you want to add, Reiss, to Elliot Anderson and how he's been for us in the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them, and I don't like to talk about it when someone's still at the club and there's not been any bids as of yet made for him. I think realistically, if you gave any Forest fan £100, I think most would be putting it on that he will be leaving this summer. But, I said this on our pod, he's everything you want from a signing, really, because let's be honest, when he come in, he was a young prospect. I don't think many Forest fans knew much about him. He'd not played a lot for Newcastle. He'd kind of been shoveled out on the left wing at times for Newcastle. So it was like, well, what have we kind of got here? Have we got someone who's a squad player who's going to, in a few seasons' time, we're thinking, yeah, be half decent. But he literally took the mantle pretty much straight away. I mean, he became a first-team player last season. Very good again this season. And like Greg said, having to deal with the passing of his mum and coming back to play for us shows his character. And yeah, it was a little poignant moment. Wanted that he got that goal against his, the club he supports and his family supporting Newcastle. So, but from a Forest point of view, if he is going to go, it's about extracting maximum value, which with Mr. Marinakis at the helm, I think will definitely happen. And yeah, I wish him the best. And I just hope if it is to another Premier League club, I hope it isn't Liverpool, but that's another discussion. I wish him the best aside from when he plays against Nottingham Forest, of course.
Can I just quickly ask, do we need to sell? I thought I heard someone say that actually for PSR, we don't need to sell him. I'm under the impression that actually we need to raise some funds. So if we don't need to sell him, and maybe we need to raise some funds, I mean, it looks like Callum Mwendow's going, it's not a foregone conclusion. It could well be that conversations, he's not going to force a move. I'm certain of that. He's not going to force a move out. And I think if he ends up playing for us in the third season, my gut feeling is that he'll be probably okay with that. So it's not necessarily a foregone conclusion, because the only reason why I was kind of thinking he's probably going to get sold is because we had to make the sale. And if we don't have to make the sale, then maybe it's not such a done deal.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
Yes. Before we wrap up, I mean, enough's been said about that Man U game and the goal what they scored where it should have been disallowed. Then obviously the game against Bournemouth, which it was pretty much a dead rubber for us, wasn't it? And they were still chasing something, but ultimately they were in the Europa League. But I think the big talking point since Friday, Reiss, is the man on your right shoulder, Morgan Gibbs-White. You said in the preview pod at the start of the season that his numbers had to be up to have a chance in you actually said no, you didn't think he was going to be on the plane because he didn't start the game at the City Ground last summer against Senegal, because ultimately Thomas Tuchel didn't fancy him. His thing is with Morgan, his numbers are there, nobody can deny that, but Thomas Tuchel doesn't fancy him, and I think the dust has settled somewhat since Friday, but I think a lot of Forest fans, if you ask, and they're still adamant that Morgan Gibbs-White should be on that plane to the States.
Yeah, I'm gutted for Morgan because he couldn't have done no more. You know, if he'd have probably had a second half of the season where which mirrored the first half, you'd say, well, probably he don't deserve it. But it got to a point at the back end of the season where he's near enough kept us up on his own. It is, you know, without him in the side, we probably would have gone down. He has been the difference at the end of the season. That's not taking away from some of the other players who've made contributions. There's no doubt about that. But he's done everything he can. I wasn't surprised because, like I said, if you follow the pattern, you know, Tuchel's not even giving him one England start. Like the Senegal friendly is probably the top of that, where it's at the City Ground. You know, players had probably dropped out. Then it's end of season. I think he would have been absolutely buzzing to start that, and he still didn't even. He only played half an hour in that.
Nearly
And then
scored,
the
didn't he?
last, yeah, and then the last camp where it was an extended pool of players, which was 35 players. He didn't even get called up for that. So I always thought it was tough. You're kind of asking yourself, has his form done enough? And surely it's done enough. But when you look at, like I say, the trend, it didn't surprise me really. I was just angry about it because he fully deserves it. And I guess the last hope was the fact that the likes of Cole Palmer and Phil Foden, it was reported they weren't in it, and you think, oh, has he snuck into it? And then obviously it come out he'd not. So gutted for him,
He,
absolutely gutted for him. But the positive is, from a Forest perspective, as he goes away for the summer, can have a break, and obviously with his family. And I'm hoping he comes back to us next season because we're talking about maybe Anderson leaving. We cannot let both of them go because that
no,
would be too much for me. I think fans, because of the position Forest are in as a club, you know, we unfortunately, if you're not a Sky Six, you are a bit of a selling club, and even if you are a Sky Six, you can become susceptible to bigger Sky Six clubs and clubs abroad. So, you know, I think we will probably take selling a player every summer if it's going to be reinvesting the squad properly. But we can't sell him. We can't sell Anderson and Gibbs White. I think that's non-negotiable for me.
yeah, I don't think Marinakis. I don't think he will sell the crown jewels in one
No,
clean
but
swoop.
he needs. There does need to be a resolution because we are back where we was last summer. That is still
Yeah,
is back to 2 years left on his deal. So obviously, if he goes into a year, that's where you're probably looking at half the value. So
yeah, oh,
the worry for me is that last summer he only signed a year deal because that he probably wanted to go. Otherwise, he'd sign a
yeah,
longer term
longer.
extension, wouldn't he? So
Yeah,
that's the concern with me. But I am hoping he does stay, but we'll have to
yeah.
see come the summer.
Yeah, I think there was a few players in the John Percy's piece, wasn't there, in the Telegraph in the recent days where Sangari, Dominguez, Nico Williams, and I
Hmm.
think Gibbs White was mentioned in that. So hopefully we can
Yeah.
get something sorted. And
Well,
we
to be fair, Nico Williams did sign a deal last year, so I know he's obviously had another good season, player of the season. So you wouldn't say that he's top of the pile, but you know, Sangari and Dominguez have only got 2 years left. You probably want to tie down Sangari after this season, and you probably want to tie down Dominguez as well because I love Dominguez. I don't see him as a starter for Forest, but he's the type of player you need in your squad. He's a solid squad player for us. So yeah, you may as well tie them down if they want to stay.
yeah. And Greg, I mean, one of the biggest talking points in the last probably 6, 7 years is the Ryan Yates debate. Where do you sit with him? Because I think he's only started 2 Premier League games all season. I mean, he's had more games in the Europa League,
Mm.
but I think if he's happy being a squad player, that you can see him being here. But where he's coming up to 28 now, probably like his peak years. Do you see him staying at the club? Or do
100%.
you, yeah,
Yeah, 100%. I don't see Ryan Yates leaving Forest, and he knows what he can do, and we've needed Ryan Yates so many times through the years. Yeah, he might not start games, But let's take the Midtjylland away performance, for example. I mean, that was pure Ryan Yates that night. He was fantastic and scored a fantastic goal. He'll be happy to be part of the squad. He's not going to be pushing to get more starts here and get more games there. He certainly knows his place in terms of the pecking order. And so, yeah, I absolutely don't want Ryan Yates to leave the club, because I think you need someone in there who is part of the soul of the club. And Ryan does epitomise that. Someone who's, one of our own, come for the academy, all that kind of stuff. I think clubs of our kind need someone like that in the dressing room. And he is the club captain, and he should remain the club captain. I absolutely don't see any value in him having the club captaincy removed from him. He's the club captain. He's happy with that. If he plays, he wears the armband. If he doesn't, Morgan wears it. It's simple as that. And I think Morgan's happy with that as well. So I wouldn't want any calls to have that captaincy shifted over. I wouldn't imagine that Morgan would want to make a play for it as well. When it comes to Morgan, now's the time to get him tied into another contract. He was offered the most amount of money we've ever paid a player end of last season. Now's the time to sit down with him and offer him even more money and tie him into a 5-year deal. Give him a 5-year contract or more money. He's not going to get the love and the adulation and the chance to run a team anywhere else. So he needs to stay. We cannot sell Morgan Gibbs-White. We cannot allow him to go. So he's got to stay. And I think Ryan is so important to us that he's got to stay as well. And I don't see him going. I can't imagine Ryan Yates playing for another team. I mean, I said the same about Joe Worrell, but that kind of unravelled, and he was kind of almost like shoved out the door a little bit. But I don't think that's going to happen with Yatesy. So no, we know what Yatesy is. I know he's divided opinion, but for me, he stays and he's important.
The last word with you, Reiss. We need to, obviously, you alluded to it a second ago regarding sorting out Elliot Anderson to get that money, so we can obviously plan accordingly for the summer and going into the season. What would you like to see happen this summer in terms of recruitment and anything else? What's happening in and around the club?
Well, I think Vítor's definitely earned the right to stay. I don't think there's no denying that. I think he is going to sign a new deal. I'd probably give him another year on, so that makes it 2. I don't think we need to go, giving out stupid deals, 4 or 5 years. Just give him another year, see kind of how it goes, because I think he's earned that right with the job he's done. It's just the alignment, mate. Just needs to be there across the board. Last season we had a manager at the start of the season who didn't agree with the recruitment. That is never going to work in any business, at any football club. So you need Vítor. I think Adu's obviously departed now. It looks like Sirianos and I think it's Ferreira who's going to do the recruitment. They kind of need to sit down and just be aligned in what they want. You can't sign players for a manager because look if we'd have done that under Sean Dyche, we would have been in a real mess now. But the manager does have to have a say, and he's got to be on board with these players. So Forest is. The summer's never quiet. I don't think it'll be a quiet summer this summer. I think there'll be a lot of rumours floating about. I think there'll be a lot of players who, if the right money comes in for them, Forest will look to maybe move on. That's players who are surplus to requirements, who probably haven't worked out, and if they can improve the squad overall, then they'll do it. I mean, the Anderson one is a bit tricky because he's going to the World Cup. So you could probably say if he does have a really good World Cup, the value would go up. But if he goes before, it's kind of like we haven't got that hanging over into kind of mid-July if England go far, for example. So, yeah, it'll be another interesting summer, mate. It always is with Forest. It's never quiet. We don't do things that way.
Yeah.
So, it's nice to have a bit of a break and just, strap yourself in for another season of Forest again next year. And just to touch on Yatesy, look, the decision will be with him. If he is happy being part of the squad, he'll stay at Forest, I think, for the rest of his career. If he does want to go out and get more game time, which he might well do, who knows, then he may want to move on. But that decision will be with him, I'm sure. I don't think any Forest manager is going to force him out the door, you know what I mean? So I think he's earned the right and the respect to kind of make that decision for himself. Like Harry Toffolo did. I think Harry was offered a new deal but he wanted to go and play football. and you can't begrudge players that, because they're getting to near 30. I think I'd be the same. As much as I love Forest, there might be a part of me where thinks, well, I actually want to go out and play some football.
I mean, it's turned out fantastically for Harry Toffolo. Goes to the States with
Yeah.
his family and everything, and
Yeah.
they're having a great time over there, looking at his Instagram and everything. So, Greg, is there any signings or any players that you would like to see come to Forest? I mean, Hayden Hackney from Middlesbrough has been mentioned, and to replace Elliot Anderson. But I think, Reiss, you said on your pod, didn't you, that you need players ready to play. We can't have these project players because we've already got the project players there.
Yeah, not all of them. It needs to be a mix. I think last season we probably went too much towards project, didn't we? Where we probably needed a few experienced heads who kind of were fit, because I liked Louise, but he just wasn't fit, was he? No. And Zinchenko was a last minute thing, and that proved to be a bit of a disaster.
Yeah. So Greg, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen him. I've not seen enough of Hayden Hackney. In fact, let me start to say that again. I've not seen anything of Hayden Hackney at all. I'm only going on what other people have said about him. From what I've read, he's a good player, but he's not a replacement for Anderson. I think he's not necessarily even the same type of player necessarily. So I don't know about him. There's always the conversation at this point as to who we're going to sign. But you know what? They always pull out these players that aren't on anybody's radar, that no one's been talking about. They've got their fingers into the South American market. They're looking into places. This is the recruitment team I'm talking about. And names will drop that none of us expected. But I do think that if we're going to make signings now going into the 5th season, it could be 4 or 5, I think I read in an article. And if that's the case, they need to be players that are really challenging to start. Really need to. I mean, some Premier League experience, in my eyes, would be really good. A couple of players that have played in the Premier League quite a bit that can come in and just add that. I mean, I know Zinchenko had that experience, but like Reiss said, he was a late addition. Something that's thought out. Someone that's targeted. A striker, I think, is necessary. Whether Taiwo goes or not, I don't know. His renaissance was great to see. I love seeing his goal away at Brentford. I was there for that. The goal he scored at Chelsea was fantastic. I got a lot of love for Taiwo. It's difficult to not have love for Taiwo, but maybe his time at Forest is at an end. And if he does go, then we thank him for his service. A striker, maybe another centre back, definitely a midfielder, probably a goalkeeper. There's 4. The spine of your team needs to probably be reinforced. So I'm not going to put names to it because it's so difficult to pick names out. And signing a striker that can come in and score you a lot of goals is almost like impossible these days. So I want to see some players coming in that hopefully have a bit of Premier League pedigree. If they are dipping into the South American market again, then we've had some success. I mean, Danilo going to the World Cup as a Botafogo player. There's been suggestion that he might come back. If he is to come back to the Premier League, I'd love him to come back to us because it looks like he's really kicked on from that injury now. I'm so happy for him. But no, we'll see. We'll see. So we're only just kind of into the summer. All the rumour mill will start, and the World Cup's here. There could be a Scalacci out there that, or another kind of player that no one's ever heard of that has a great World Cup, and all of a sudden everybody wants to buy them.
Definitely. I think on that note, we'll leave it there because, like I says, the World Cup's, what is it, 3 weeks away, Reiss? So or whatever. So, and then obviously the cricket season. So, but no, thank you to everybody who's joined us and listened to us over the last 9 or 10 months, and from 4 managers to Premier League survival with an unbelievable European experience to talk about. It's been some season. Thank you to you, Reiss, from Red Side of the Trent, and you, Greg, from Talking Reds. And we'll be back in your feeds early next week with another edition of Football Terrace, which is our game show with a chaotic discussion of the season's highs and lows. We hope to see you then, and you can find out all on our socials and podcast links at 1865.football. And come on, you Reds.